Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the program where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwak Amimo. Well, we're 2 weeks away from the general elections, and the candidates have committed themselves to peaceful conduct and to accepting the outcome of the polls. We've also seen the deployment of hundreds of hate speech monitors across the country. Well, the chairman of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, which has been deploying the hate speech monitors, is Dr. Mzalendo Kibunjia. He's our guest on Cheche this morning. We'll also hear the opinions of our panelists, Citizen TV's Mutegi Njau and political analyst David Makali. Good morning and welcome to the program. Welcome back, Dr. Kibunjia.
Thank you very much.
The last time we saw you, you were in the process of training up people, volunteers, police officers and various others to monitor hate speech. You've now deployed them. Are you satisfied that you've done enough to contain hate speech in the run-up to this election?
Yes, I am very confident, and I can also say here today that a study that was done that looked at about 15,000 people across all counties except Turkana. And one of the questions that was asked is that in recent days, have you had statements made that make you to hate either people of your community or are intended to harm people of your ethnic community? And the percentage there nationally is about 9%. So
is that
out
good or
of
bad?
That is very good, because that means that 91% of politicians in this country, as they are campaigning, they are not inciting people on basis of ethnicity. So for me, I think these strategies that we have employed are working. So for us, that is a good thing, considering that this is a much bigger study than any of the opinion polls that have been done. So yes, I can tell you it's working. I can also tell you that I have had people who are campaigning come to me and ask me, if I say, for example, my opponent, Ashindo, is that hate speech? I say, yes, because then you're calling him a devil. That shows that they are concerned. And when you talk on devil, nobody likes devils anyway. So I said that's not a language. So to hear that from candidates, for me, I feel satisfied that this is working.
David, why are you laughing? Why do you think that?
I think that
it's amusing.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think first of all that there's a lot of hate speech going on. I think Daktari, the figures might be reflecting something else, but I've been on the campaign trail and there is a lot of hate speech, what I would call hate speech. I'm not a qualified person to label.
What are you calling
label what he's calling hate speech. When people say, can I say tumshinde, tumutoe, I mean, that is happening everywhere. But if that is hate speech, then I think a lot of it is happening and is missing his his radar. But I think that the more dangerous hate speech that's going on is really on the social media. And I'm really keen to hear what Dr. is saying about it, because I'm on many forums online, and what is being spewed there is massive hate speech. There was a discussion when Dr. was here last time about curbing that extent of hate speech. I don't know whether there's any progress, and where I've not seen people apprehended, yet it's still going on daily.
We saw in the news actually that you had targeted some websites. We
have targeted some websites, some of them which we made public and say which ones we think that are inciting people. But much more important is that we've been preparing files for 3 Kenyans on the basis of things that they're posted on the internet. These things takes a while, and to collect all this information. Remember this case when we take to the courts, which I'm assuming is even before we go to elections, is that will be the first test case on whether when you post things in the internet, in the Kenyan laws, you can actually be prosecuted. So that's why we're making sure that before we send these files to the courts, that all bases covered to make sure that that does not happen. But I'll tell you one thing, since we came up this, we started talking about these things. There's a website called, I think it's a Daily Post. That Daily Post was one of the sites that we concluded was inciting people. Now, they used to have people to make commentary on stories they posted. They have removed that from that side. You cannot make a comment on that side. That tells you there's some action that is going on. But also when you look at other areas where they ask readers to comment, the first statement there that says is that we will not accept any statements that constitute hate speech. So people are careful. I'm not saying we have eradicated it. It's not possible, I would imagine. And even internet is not something that we can even cover as a country. Syria tried it. It never worked. China has tried it. It has not worked. Other countries have tried it. Egypt did. But it means that we cannot say because we can't cover it completely, we can't do something. And I want to assure Kenyans we're doing something about it.
The question is, what about radio? Last time you talked about some radio stations that you earmarked.
Yes.
I haven't had anything. That radio, particularly vernacular radio stations, are very prone to hate speech.
I think that matter is being handled by Media Council, which is the industry watchdog, and those are the right people really who should be dealing with that. Of course, in consultation with other institutions like us who are supposed to be working on it. As far as I know, letters of reprimand were sent to these radio stations, and I don't know, subsequent to that reprimand, whether they have continued to incite people on basis of...
Why have they not been made public?
Well,
because you name and shame.
You know, that this is the dilemma that we always have, that, it's speech, you have also to worry about people's freedom. Unless really you think that they have gone beyond reasonable doubt, that's when you do it. Because it may affect businesses. And when you affect businesses, it means you also people working there. So we have to, as we're enforcing the law, we must also be careful that we don't ruin something that is useful. Because it doesn't mean, because that radio station has incited people on one day, that all 365 days of the year, that's all what they do. I don't think so. But something that we are cognizant of, and we want to do something about it.
But what about, picking up on David's question, if you say, for instance, that hate speech is obvious and recognizable, what about coded language, which particular communities understand, but which, say, somebody, an outsider, would not necessarily understand, the coding that's going on? How are you dealing with that?
Very good question, and I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things also we identified very early on is we realize that once people know that if you say something like this is hate speech, they retreat into those coded languages. And what we did as a commission is we commissioned a study that looked at, I think, 39 counties in this country, and we asked people, a very comprehensive sample like the one I was talking about earlier on, where we asked people, what name do you want to call your neighbors when you don't want them to know you are talking about them? And we got a whole raft of names, some of them positive, and that's very negative. And we released this study and said, these are names that if you want peaceful coexistence, if you want cohesive nation, you must not call people negative names, because then if you do that, you demean them and they don't want to be part of you. And we have a whole raft of those things. And what we are saying is that, can Kenyans begin using positive names, positive content language on others, so that then people feel, okay, she or she respect me? And it was very, very interesting, some of these things. Most of them were names of snakes, animals, things like, people who smell badly, people who have not. But very interesting for us was that there was both positive and negative. And I want to give you a very good example that is in common language. Many Kenyans, you will hear them say people from the coast are lazy. And you hear that because they are slow, they are not walking very fast like people of Nairobi and other people. But then also people recognize that people from the coast are very polite. They're very polite, but they are very accommodating. Yeah, they are very generous people. They accommodate. They have been receiving Portuguese, British, and now Kikuyus, Luos, Asians, and everybody. So if we stopped using the word coast people are lazy, and since their hospitality, the way they welcome us, the way they have everybody at the coast, that is a good way to build good relations in the country. And I said, people asked me, how do you enforce these things? Then I said, look, we have values and morals as a country. And I was giving them an example. In America, for example, if you are a politician or a national leader, you cannot call African Americans niggers. You call them, that's the end of your political life. We need to get there also as a nation where you can call other people bad names, negative stereotypes, and these content languages, and get away with it. And I am very happy that in this election, for example, you don't hear the kind of language that was there in 2007, calling other people madoado, calling other people, hands, calling people hyenas, calling people snakes. that language is not there anymore. That means we're beginning. And I think this is what the culture we need to build where we're looking at as a nation.
Mutegi, let me come to you because, of course, you've been around much longer than the rest of us. Do you believe that these efforts at, sort of, the term I wanted to use, ensuring that we use positive language in politics is having any sort of effect on the campaigns and how people conduct their campaigns, how they interact with each other politically?
These are cultural things, and they take a long time to change. For instance, I know in the Kikuyus, we call Luos Yamu, animals, Yamu Sharuguru, animals from... Those are things that, particularly for older people, maybe the young ones don't know it, but the older people, it will be very difficult to change them from that attitude. In fact, it's only recently that you used to see Luos and Kikuyus intermarrying. Intermarriage now is encouraged. I remember when I was a kid, a Dio from my place was a Luo, married a guy a woman from my home. It was seen as if it's outrageous. These things have changed. The same thing, it will take time for these things to change, particularly for the older generation. But the young people probably don't know it. Maybe in Sheng, they have their own ways of saying it. But those are cultural things which will take time.
Is there any sort of generational targeting? Or generation appropriate
it's very interesting.
Messaging?
This is very interesting, and this is again another study, and that's what I know we've been criticized. We do a lot of studies and all, but those are the ones that helps us to move. We also realize that kids, when they're in primary school and also in a bit in secondary school, they don't care which tribe you come from.
They don't even know.
They don't even care. Even your home, you see them. But the moment they get to university and begin now realizing my identity is Kikuyu, it changes. It flips back again to what it is. So yes, you could say the young generation is not coming in, but there's some point where they again, because they hear these things, people talking, their parents talking about it at home, and all that. They may ignore it when they are young because they are chasing different things and they haven't really got fully identified who they are. But later they become these same people that they are. So that's why this campaign, I think it should not only target a certain people. I think it's a campaign that we should carry in schools. It's a campaign we should carry in social places. You are in a social place and drinking and someone calls an epithet like that on a stereotype. You should be able to tell them, stop that. That's not something to say.
But Kibunjia, and those stereotypes are not just created. They arise out of perception of the character or ethnic character of those people. So we should be addressing social habits and those typical attributes of those communities rather than try to run over them. I mean, that is really trying to paint a wall white, a black wall white, right?
No, David. No, David, what we're not saying, that's what we're saying. In this country,
yes,
we have lived like what we've been saying with an ideology that there are Kenyans who are foreigners, that one day they will not be there. That's why you have names for the other. So this division between we and them, us and others. And we're saying, is it possible to have even begin a national conversation where there are no others? That we are all we Kenyans, all of it. And I say, use the positive one. And I want to give an example that people say all the time, but which is a common parlance. Kikuyus, the positive thing, hard-working people who want to do that. And then there's the other one, they are thieves. You wouldn't want to be led by a thief if you continue calling them thieves because you think there are many of them. So why do you want to use that when you have others? And I also give another example about the Luos. This like what you're saying. People say Luos are not circumcised, that I can't be led by a circumcised person. Today Luos are being circumcised in droves. So you cannot use that to describe them. You cannot say I don't want to be led by a circumcised person if that's not true.
They say they're arrogant.
So it's changing. Arrogant.
In the pursuit of that business of they and us, why is it that we allow our universities and tertiary institutions to have students organize themselves through tribe instead of through faculty?
Good question. Mutegi, this is what we have been saying. It's our bad manners.
It is the politicians who go to introduce those things there.
And
in the universities.
Yeah, even when you use the student campaigns, you see
they mirror
this tribal campaign. But we're saying we are crafting a new country We are crafting a new country that is cohesive, that is integrated, that leaves the bad manners behind.
But isn't there a historical precedent for that? I mean, our politics, coming into independence, was organized around ethnic student movements. And it just seems interesting that 50 years down the line, we haven't addressed that paradox.
Actually, it wasn't so. It was the colonial government that stopped national political organizations. They liked them in tribes. So you had a Kamba Union, the
Central Association,
Central Kavirondo Association.
So that's the point I'm making, yes.
But by independence, by 63 and earlier, when Kenyatta formed his government, there was not much of tribalism. We were more national then than now.
In fact, that's the frontier we missed.
Yeah.
If we utilize that to build a nation, it would have been different.
Yeah.
And the other one in 202 also.
We have to take a break now. We'll come back to that because that is an important point. You're watching Cheche live on Citizen TV. Dr. Mzalendo Kibunjia of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission is our guest this morning. If you've got any questions for him, you can SMS 2442 or tweet Cheche_TV.